Hello, hello, hello. Today I'm going to give you some quick info review of the Huawei Y9. This phone came into my possession. I don't know if anybody saw my review of the Samsung Chromebook, but it came into my possession via that because sometimes I will arrange a swap other than selling a phone, and I just wanted to have a look at this since I had reviewed the Samsung M20, and this is of a similar spec, and I just really wanted to see what was the difference between both of these. And I mean, there's not really much difference, but it just goes to show that at this kind of price, this is a bit more expensive than the Samsung. This goes around about 750, slightly above that SR on Souk, whereas the Samsung is about 650. So there are some differences. So let me just give you the specification. Of course, I have to look at GSM Arena. This is the 2019 Y9, so it has a 6.4 screen, and it has this 19.9 aspect ratio. It's 2340 by 1080 resolution IPS. It have a keyring, and the keyring is a 710, so it's octa-core with a Mali G51 GPU. The main camera is a 13 megapixel and a 2 megapixel. The front camera is a selfie camera, they call it, 16 MP and 2 MP. The cameras are actually pretty good on this. This model comes dual SIM, 64 GB and 4 GB of RAM, and you can see that it does have a headphone jack, which is cool. What it doesn't have is USB-C, which is a bit of a shame really. It's micro USB, and it has the one speaker at the bottom. Now, in the hand, this feels wider than the Samsung. Whereas the Samsung one was all polycarbonate or plastic, this one is plastic at the back, but it does have a metal frame around it, so this is what gives it a bit more heft. Actually, it feels a lot heavier as well. And normally I quite like phones that are a bit of weight to them, because it kind of gives that premium feeling, but I don't know, I actually preferred the Samsung in my hand, perhaps because it was easier to operate one-handed. I'm not sure if that is a reason. I will say up front that out of both of them, I think I would go with the Samsung. There's nothing really wrong with this Y9. I just really fancied the Samsung a bit more. There was just something about it that I liked. I'm not sure what it was, but they're very, very similar. Has a fingerprint sensor here, obviously, on the back. It comes with, I think it was Android. Let me just double check. It was. I'll need to go into the settings here and let's have a look, because it has the Huawei skin on it. So I did the Antutu, and it has a very respectable score of 133,500. It was pretty good, and around about the same kind of score as the Samsung. Let me go in here. So it's Android 8.10, and the only other thing I wanted to check was the octa-core. So yeah, it's 64-bit, and it has A53, 4A53 and 4A73 ARM Cortex. The DPI, or the pixel density, sorry, is 396 ppi. And really, I mean, look, for most people and for the price, it's still an excellent phone, don't get me wrong. Let me find the settings here for you, because I want to just check something here. System, because I've forgotten the name of the EMUI, which is the 8.2.0 version. Okay, see if there's any updates. I think it updated recently, if I can remember. Now, what I noticed with this, I normally will go not with the stock interface. I usually will put a launcher on it, and my launcher of choice recently have been probably Microsoft, but I went back to Nova for a while, and I've noticed with this one, I can't seem to work out how to get it to stay with Nova. It will go back, and you'll see it goes back to EMUI, so I suppose I'll have to go into the settings and fiddle about with it to get that sorted. Camera wise, it says it have a AI camera. Now I'm not exactly sure what that really entails. Obviously it's some software involved in capturing your photos, and I found that the photos and video that I took were reasonably good. I didn't have any problems with them, and again, if you're looking at the price of this phone, then I think one would be happy with they're not the best photos, of course they're not, but really for most people who are taking photos and putting them on, like me, putting them on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, then I think you'd be more than happy. It did come preloaded with some, I didn't remove it because I'm just going to reformat it soon. It did come loaded with some bloatware, some games, and some other third-party applications. I didn't really bother that much about it. In general use, I found that it's working very decently. I didn't really notice too much stuttering with it. Going through using the browser, I really didn't feel that there was any real delay. Occasionally there was a bit dragging when you were scrolling, but for the most part, and if you consider how much that this phone cost, then you're not going to be unhappy about its performance. I think it is pretty decent. I mean, all round, I think it is a decent phone. I just preferred I don't know what it is about the Samsung screen. The Samsung screen was an IPS screen as well, and I'm not sure what it was, but I just felt that the Samsung screen, excuse me, looked a wee bit better. And let's see, enable here. What's this? Oh, right. How do I skip that? Skip. Let me see. GPS tag allows you to tag your GPS, and my little robot here. Try not to show you the overhead light. And that's me zooming right in on that. Oh, there's me with my baby, my first baby. There's me zooming right in on that. That's very clear. I might have a good light in here, but it's very clear. Look, most people are going to be pretty happy with this screen. And they're going to be happy with the camera. Other things to say, the speaker, which I was only really using to listen to some YouTube videos, was fine. Yeah, it's nothing to write home about. It was fine. The music via my new headphones, which are these babies. These are Final Audio E3000, and they're actually really good. They don't look much, to be honest with you. They have this kind of like stainless steel finish. They don't look like much, but for the price, which was just under $50, these are very cool, very nice. Certainly for those of us who like our music. So these are the Final Audio E3000. Really, really good general sound, not too bassy, not too toppy. Just for those of us who just like a nice clear separation, pretty good. Check them out. But the music sounded pretty good on that. Not as good as the other phone that I'm using at the moment, but I will review that one of these days. What else can I tell you about this? Well, of course, Huawei are releasing, what was it, the P30 Pro, I think I saw. The what was the other one? The Mate 20 Pro, my friend has that. It's a beautiful screen. So they've really got a lot of phones on the go at the moment, and they're obviously the high-end phones. But for those of us who can't afford these high-end phones, certainly when they come out, the notch phones now that are almost completely bezel-less. This is probably about the same bezel size as the Samsung, but because of the steel frame here, it's wider, of course, so that's why even my hands are pretty big. It's not easy to kind of operate one-handed, but with regards to the screen size, etc., I don't think there's much difference in the bezel size between this and the Samsung. And this is what's great about these phones now. It's excellent that we have such a brilliant choice of phones that are available. My wife, it's my wife, and it's her birthday today. I forgot. I thought it was tomorrow. We have such a really great plethora of phones now that are really, really high end compared to a year or two ago, and they're all really good. So it's a great time for people who love phones like me, and it's now getting difficult to kind of differentiate, certainly within this kind of price point, to differentiate yourself. And there's some phones trying it, and I've got a couple of reviews coming up as well, which will round about the same, slightly above kind of prices that the Y9 is coming in at. This is a 2019 one, in case I didn't mention it, because there was a 2018 one that didn't look exactly like this. So in general, if you're a Huawei fan, then I don't think you're going to be unhappy with this. And you're a Huawei fan on a budget. 64 GB, 4 GB of RAM, and SD card slot, dual SIM. What's not to like about that? And performance-wise, it's going to really meet most people's needs, and gaming-wise, you're going to be able to. Certainly, less demanding games are going to be able to be played on this relatively easily. So, it's a great time for those of us who don't have as much money to spend, or people like me who. I acquire my phones, I try to get them as cheap as possible, because I then sell them on so I can buy other phones so that I can review for you, and just to give you another lo-fi, shall we say, lo-fi review. Basically, so you can check out the fancier YouTube reviews, and it's really just to make an informed decision, and that is why I started doing this reviewing stuff. Because even if I wasn't reviewing phones, etc., I'd still be buying them and talking to people about them. And this is why it started, was that people were always asking me about advice to buy phones, and what their budget was, so I would tell them what was kind of available and stuff like that. So that's really why I started it, and it's so there's plenty of phones around for me if I can keep this going by selling, swapping, etc., so that I can. And even older phones now, high-end phones that came out 1, 2, even 3 years ago, because there's kind of reached, and I've said this before in the video, that there's been a kind of plateau reached now. How fast does your phone really have to be? So if your phone is working well and not lagging, not hanging, anything like that, then phones of a couple of years ago are still really pretty decent, and most of them are like half, even less than half price. So for people like us, I'm assuming because you're watching this video, you're maybe considering buying this, or you are interested in phones, technology, etc. like me, I mean, it is a good time. And if you're in another country, you could be doing the same as me and selling these on eBay. It's difficult for me in Saudi to sell these on eBay. I suppose I could, but it's not as easy. So I usually do it through Facebook. And I'm in the eastern region, so Facebook for sale pages, and I try and get a fair price. And funnily, if people remember the Pocophone that I had a guy he'd sent a message saying that now that Pocophone, I think new here, the 128 GB was like nearly 1,300, I think, if I can remember, and I was wanting about 1,000 for it because it's brand new. And then this guy came on Facebook and he was saying that I was scamming, and that the phone could be bought for like 900 or 1,000 riyals. And I told him, show me. And I told him, buy one and I will buy it from him, and I will give him some extra money as well if he could find the 128 GB for that price. I told him I could buy it from him. So sometimes a bit strange people that you meet, but I try and sell these at a fair price on Facebook, and I'm always open. If people are not happy, they can return within a few days. And I've had people who have bought stuff and there's been a problem, and I don't have a problem them returning it and me either replacing it or giving them their money back. So yeah, strange people on Facebook. There's plenty of scammers on Facebook, definitely, but if you don't want to pay the price that I'm asking, it's fine. I'm not forcing you to pay it. It's very easy to check the prices of phones these days. So it's you don't expect that you're going to get a phone really cheaply from me unless it's a cheap phone, because I will price it at a fair market value, and I will let it go at a fair market value. So anyway, that's my rant over about my Facebook dealings. Most of the time it's pretty positive, and it's a pretty decent way to sell phones. So anyway, I got not much else to say about this. As I said at the beginning, between this and the Samsung M20, I think I would still go with the Samsung M20, which is sold. I think just with the lightness of it and the width was less, it just was easier on the hand, and I feel that it just tipped in the screen department that I felt, I'm not sure why, and it's just hard to say because this is a good screen, but I just felt the Samsung was a wee bit better. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the Huawei, or it's not Huawei because you don't pronounce the H, I think it's Huawei Y9 2019. If you have any questions, comments, etc., I will do my best to answer them in a timely fashion. Bye.